Hi everybody, I want to start off the webinar by introducing our speaker here today, Ms. Reardon. For years, Ms. Reardon has been working to change the face of STEM. She began her work at Skyline Community College, where she worked as a director of Mathematics Engineering Science Achievement Program. After successfully establishing Skyline's MESA program, she accepted a position as the Assistant Director of Programs for MESA statewide at the University of California's Office of the President, working with nearly 70 community colleges and University Mesa programs. In 2012, she joined UC Flagship's campus by accepting a position at UC Berkeley in the College of Engineering. At Berkeley, she established Berkeley's award-winning transfer pre-engineering program, T-Prep. She is currently the director of UC Berkeley Transfer Alliance Project, where she leads the team committed to promoting the success of transfer-bound students. Throughout her career, Ms. Reardon has helped hundreds of students successfully transfer to top-tier universities, prepare for grad school, and gain prestigious research fellowships. In 2018, she launched rufinder.com, a blog aimed at exposing non-traditional students to paid research opportunities. Thank you, Ms. Reardon, for being here today, and you may go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. This is my favorite time of the year. I love fall for a number of reasons, the weather, but it's also the time when research programs start recruiting, when students start thinking about research, about internships. So I'm really delighted to have this opportunity today. I want this presentation to be as interactive as possible. So please, don't hesitate to ask questions, and we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. No question is a silly question, and chances are that a question you ask, someone might be thinking, "Oh, I wish I would have asked that question." So please, don't be shy. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
And you could ask him anonymously too.
Yes. All right. Can you all see my screen? Great. All right. So your summer research starts now. Steps to secure and succeed in summer research programs. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. And again, I went ahead and really kind of made a point to kind of describe the different types of research programs, give some resources, some examples, and really the point is not just to secure a research opportunity. We want you to excel in the research opportunity, right? And so what that looks like, excelling in the research opportunity, we'll talk a bit about that. All right. So, first of all, I want to just kind of quickly go over, you read my bio, or my bio was read, and so, you can kind of Google me and find some things out about me. But whenever I listen to a speaker, I like to know kind of what their motivation is, what their background is, why are they invested in, whatever they're talking about. And so some of the things that you might not know, I was a first-generation college student. And being a first-generation college student is really a very important situation, right? You may not know it, but when people say, describe your leadership, and you might say, oh, I'm just, I don't really have time for leadership opportunities. Maybe you're working, maybe you're going to school, maybe you're a first-generation college student. That is leadership, right? It wasn't until many years later that I understand the ability to articulate and see leadership through that lens. So if you are a first-generation college student, amazing. I know it's hard and it can be hard, but what you are doing is pretty phenomenal. In addition, we typically defined a first-generation college student as someone who neither of your parents has graduated from a university in the US. So if neither one of your parents has a degree from a university in the US, then you are a first-gen college student. And so just wanted to kind of explain that, because I always get students that say, oh, I didn't realize that was a definition. I was also a student parent. So being a student parent, you're wearing many, hats. We might have some student parents on here, and the ability to manage your time as a student parent is pretty phenomenal. Also, I actually don't have a STEM degree, which is funny. But my degree is in sociology. My undergrad's in sociology, my master's in education. So thinking about, the different fields that you might be interested in, I kind of consider myself an engineer by osmosis because I've been working with engineers for so long. And I really, really appreciate and enjoy the concept of the transfer student process. And the California Community College system in particular, I think is one of the most phenomenal systems in the world. I've seen the products of that system. I've seen some of the most brilliant innovators through that system. And I am always, always here to encourage any student. So please, please, please feel free to reach out to me if you have a question about anything. Imposter syndrome, no more. When I was a student a million years ago, we didn't have a name for imposter syndrome, right? We didn't know what it was. Now we do. And I think it's very powerful because when you know what something is, you can analyze it, right? You're all scientists. You can think critically about it, right? And when that imposter syndrome creeps up, and it always does creep up, it really never goes away, just in a different setting. But typically when you're experiencing imposter syndrome, that means that you are doing something new, you're out of your comfort zone, and you are going to be a better person as a result of it. So thinking of it that way. So just a little bit of info. Now, enough about me. Let's talk a little bit about RU Finder. So as was mentioned, I decided to create this website, RU Finder, and it was mainly because I got tired of spamming students, right? I was like, oh, this is a cool opportunity. Oh, this is a great opportunity. And so I decided, well, what if there was a way to have something where I can just, post it online and students could find it. And so this is a way for you to look for research, scholarship, opportunities. For example, maybe it has to do with industry opportunities. Maybe it has to do with graduate preview days, navigating college. But really, there's, the kind of the premise of it was essentially to show that any student, regardless of your previous experience, regardless of your GPA, regardless of what school you go to, your citizenship status, there are programs for everyone. And so just wanted to, share that. And I hope if you've utilized our site, I hope you have benefited from it. And if you haven't, please check it out. Okay. So in the
Can I
chat,
ask you a question?
sure,
How
absolutely.
much does it cost to go to that website?
Time, it's free. There is no cost, just
Okay.
your time, right?
Just wanted to make sure that bring that up because
Yeah, it's a free resource. It's just time, right? It's just a free resource. So in the chat, do folks have the ability to chat? It looks like they do. Okay,
yes.
great. So in the chat, if you can put your major. So what are you majoring in? This is helpful for me. So just to kind of give me a sense of what folks are majoring in. So if you can put in the chat what your major, are you doing chemistry, data science, math, computer science, engineering? If so, what kind of engineering? Are you pre-med, physics, pre-pharm? Cool. We've got neuroscience, biomedical, bio, neuroscience, biochem, bio, chemistry, pre-med, comp sci, pre-med, bio. Great. Okay, wonderful. Very nice. Computer science, pre-med. Okay, fantastic. So one of the things that I really appreciate in working with transfer students is that for those of you that are transfer students, you really, really have a huge advantage because you can explore, right? You can explore different majors. If you are applying to the UCs, for example, there are over 160 UCs, like system-wide. So your major might be called one thing at one school, and it might be called something else at another school. In addition, if you decide to go to graduate school, medical school, you might, major in something else, right? So really the exploration piece is very exciting, I think, in kind of being the person that kind of observes what students are doing. So I really, really encourage you that, let's say, for example, you are a bio student, right? You're biology. think about what kind of biology, right? What kind of biology are you interested in, right? And kind of filtering what you're interested in and those different disciplines. But thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's very helpful. All right, now, where are you? So I am actually in California, Northern California. And if you want to get really specific, the Bay Area. But where are you? Maybe you're in SoCal, maybe you're in NorCal, maybe you're in LA, San Francisco, very nice. LA, all right, Sacramento, San Jose, Bay Area, LA, San Diego, Central Valley, Washington, SoCal, Phoenix, Bay Area, very cool. LA. Okay, so we're all in the same time zone, except Arizona. I think you're an hour ahead. Indiana. Okay, great. So you are on a different time zone. So thank you for joining us. So love that. San Bernardino. Very cool. Okay. So why do research? So there are many reasons why a student might decide to do research. One reason is you want to make contributions to the research world, right? It always strikes me as interesting how many students I talk to and they say, I don't know what research is, or I don't know if I would like research. And I say to them, well, what do you think research is, right? And typically when we think of research, we have this vision of someone in a lab, right? Someone in a lab at the bench doing research. That is one type of research, right? But there are many other types of research as well. How many of you have ever taken an honors course, right? If you have taken an honors course, let's say you've taken an honors course at your community college, chances are you've done a research project. In fact, last year, I was really excited and very fortunate enough to be at an honors research symposium that we hosted at UC Berkeley in the spring. And it was from community college students from all throughout the state that were presenting their honors research projects. So if you have taken an honors class, you probably have done research. Maybe there's something you're really, really interested in, right? Maybe there's some project that you really are interested in, you want to know more about. That's a form of research as well. So if you're interested in research, why do research? Is one reason is you want to make a contribution. You're interested in something and you want to understand something, and we don't have all the answers, but you do some background and do some investigation, and perhaps you publish your research, and it's very, very common to see students, undergraduate students, publish undergraduate research. It's a lot more common than one might think. It also, if you're applying to transfer to a university, this will strengthen your transfer applications, right? Because this shows a depth of knowledge, it shows an interest in the major, it shows, especially if you're applying to a research institution, right? If you're applying to a school whose primary focus is research and you have research experience, that's really going to strengthen that transfer application. Graduate applications. If you're interested in going to grad school, let's say you want to get a master's or a PhD, you almost have to have research, right? If you're applying for a PhD program, you're going to need to have some undergraduate research. It also demonstrates interest in your major. So maybe you're a first-year student, maybe you're a second-year student, and a lot of the classes that you take in the majors that were described are pretty foundational, right? You're taking math, you're taking chemistry, you're taking physics. You're not really taking much of the good stuff, right? It's pretty foundational at this point. But if you get involved in research, you can go beyond that, right? So you can apply some of those concepts that you've learned in the classroom and apply those concepts to solve real-world problems. You can also get exposed to various subdisciplines and areas of your major. It demonstrates the applications of your major, right? So how your major is used. Many, many times when students participate in research programs, after the program, sometimes they pivot. Sometimes they say, actually, I've changed what I want to do, right? And I think that's a good thing because you have a better understanding. Finally, sometimes students that do research find that Maybe research isn't for them, but they're interested in going into industry, right? We've all heard about these crazy technical interviews that happen. I'll tell you that after participating in research, chances are you're going to be really, really good about explaining and walking through the steps of a concept, of a problem, really explaining kind of the steps to a task. So those different technical interviews, basically they want to know how you think and walking someone through a problem. And having these types of experiences, you'll do a lot better because you'll have to do that. You'll have to explain your research. The best skill that you can get as a researcher, right? The very best skill you can have is to explain very, very complicated process, right? A very, very complicated process or a very, very complicated topic in simpler terms, right? That is a skill. That is a very, very good skill. Some of the teachers that you've had, probably, very likely, they've done just that. They were able to, break something down and explain it in a way where you're able to digest it, you're able to understand. And having that ability is a life skill that you'll get via doing research. All right, so the types of undergraduate research programs. So there are various types of undergrad research programs. Some of these programs, for some of you that are pre-med, you might participate in an enrichment program. So an enrichment program might be specifically for students that are interested in, the pre-professional programs, pre-med, pre-pharm, pre-dental, pre-health, right? Some of those programs, they'll have an enrichment program. They might have a small research component, but they might also have different, depending on what you're going to be studying, they might have MCAT preparation courses. They might have, you might go to a hospital, right? They'll have a different variety of things, but they're more so enrichment programs versus a program that's solely focused on research. Another type is the summer research experience for undergrads, what we call REUs. So those are programs where the primary goal is to get students exposed to undergraduate research. So in those programs, oftentimes you'll work on a research project. Perhaps you'll be assigned, a graduate mentor, a faculty. Maybe you'll work on it with another undergrad. Sometimes they do that. Sometimes you'll be the, one or two undergrads in the lab. And then at the end, you typically will present your research. Maybe you'll do a poster presentation, or maybe you'll do a presentation for your lab. But that's the majority of these programs that we're alluding to. Then there's the IRES program. So these are international research experience for students. So this would be a program where it's like a summer REU program, but you go to another country, right? So those are programs that you can participate in. For those programs, the cycle to apply is much, much sooner. Most of these programs, the REU programs in the summer, the majority of those programs the deadlines are typically like from January to March, sometimes early April. These programs, the IRES programs, they're going to be much sooner because there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to, prepare, right? You might have to get your passport, your visa, various things. So the deadlines will be much sooner. Finally, there's academic year research with faculty. So this might be during the academic year that you're working with a faculty member and you're doing research that's, also aside from taking classes. So if you are at a university, maybe you're doing that already. Even if you're not, if you're at a community college, you can ask your professors if there's a research project, or if you're doing an honors class, maybe there's an opportunity to do research as well. But these are the various types of programs. Okay, so
Hey, Sheridan, I have a question.
Sure.
So if let's say I'm a community college student and I'm on here, but I have this thing that says, you know what, I'm just gonna wait until I transfer to do research and all those other things. Um, Can you talk about how competitive it is once you're at the transfer institution on getting research experience on campus, and
Sure.
why, as a community college student, you should start applying now?
Absolutely. So I really encourage you not to wait for a number of reasons. The first reason is because getting exposure to your major and getting exposed to what you can do with your major is really, really important, because let's say that you're, planning to major in, this major, and then you get to the university and you're like, oh, I actually don't really want to do this, right? And if you're a transfer student, sometimes you can't change your major, or it's very hard, right? So that's the one reason. The second reason is that typically for, university professors, and depending on the research topic, if it's something like AI, right? Everyone wants to do AI. AI is very popular, machine learning, AI. They're probably going to want someone who's had previous research experience, right? In addition, adjusting to the university and adjusting to a new, research setting, that's a lot. So I would say there are plenty of opportunities out there right now. It really would be advantageous for you to take advantage of those opportunities before, because you will have had a glimpse of what research experience is like, and you'll be so much more competitive. So that's, those are two reasons why I would encourage you. And it's also going to help you in your transfer process, because let's say you're applying to a UC school, right? And say you're applying to a UC school, the first question they ask you on the personal insight questions is, tell us how you've prepared for your upper division coursework, right? And exposure to your major. And if you do research, you have a solid, research experience that you can talk about and illustrate that. So I think that would be another reason to participate. So where do you do research, right? So typically these will take place at a university lab or a research center. Now, sometimes, let's say, for example, you do a research program with the Department of Energy. They have 19 national labs all across the US, right? So some of them might be on university campuses. For example, Berkeley, we have the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Stanford, they have the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center, right? Those are both on campus, but typically it will be at a research center or at a lab. Maybe it's even a hospital if you do like an enrichment program. These are usually cohort programs, so you won't be the only student. They can range from 4 to 40, right? Really depends on how big the cohort is. Being a part of a cohort is actually a really good and beneficial experience, because you get to network with other students that are probably have the same academic goals that you have, and thus you'll be able to network with them, and you'll be able to support each other and perhaps share, resources and things like that. And who knows, maybe you'll end up going to grad school together or med school together. It's a paid experience. This is work, right? This is work. So I highly encourage you, if you're going to spend your entire summer in a research program, you should be getting paid for it. Even though sometimes students say, I would do it for free. Okay, the thing is, you don't want to do too many things for free, because if you have a bunch of free things on your resume, when you graduate, it's going to be very, very hard to negotiate job offers if you've done things for free, right? In addition, life is expensive, gas is expensive, food's expensive, right? Even if even if financially, you're doing okay, you should still get paid, right? In addition, you can get professional development, right? So professional development, for example, maybe they will have grad school workshops, medical school workshops. If it's a program for community college students, information about transfer. Maybe they'll have, networking sessions, resume, CV sessions, things like that. They oftentimes will have that. Sometimes they'll just simply have community building activities, which is fun as well, just to kind of break the ice and get to know the other students. It'll allow you to apply the topics you've learned in the classroom. Sometimes they'll have lecturers that'll come and speak. It'll also give
Mi-
you a glimpse of life as a researcher and a glimpse of life at grad school.
Miss Reardon, I have this other question.
Yeah.
Since you've run programs, what can you talk a little bit about um, if those programs like there have paid staff and other things to help you
Yes.
versus having researchers do free labor?
Yes, they have staff that so typically what happens is in these programs um they have the faculty, right? They have the faculty that do the research, but they also have folks who coordinate the programs, right? So those are the people that are recruiting, those are the people that are collecting the applications, those are the people that you'll correspond with, right? So these are people there to support you, these are people there to help you. So if you have questions, those are your contact people. So very often it's not the lead faculty or what we call a PI, the principal investigator. Sometimes it is, but usually they'll have like a program director or a staff person to support you and help you. So you want to make sure that you connect with these people. If you go to, let's say you go to SACNAS. I don't know if folks are familiar with SACNAS. SACNAS is a organization and they have a wonderful research conference. And instead of a job fair, they have basically a big research fair where they have tables and people that are there to recruit you, right? So those people, those are the people that you want to talk to, that you have questions about, and they're there to answer those questions and get you to apply to their program.
This is another question I have.
Mhm.
What if like, like applying to a summer program is just a lot of work and you gotta like, what if I just email professors directly? What, isn't that easier?
It's easier, but here's the problem. One, um, I've had this happen. I actually had this happen one time. There was a student, I was running a research program at Berkeley, and I had a student who emailed the professor and said, they wanted to do research in the lab, and the professor said, yeah, sure, for free, right? So, of course, but they weren't in the program, right? So they hadn't applied to the program. So, yeah, sure. If you cold email a professor, one, they may or may not respond, and two, if it's not a structured research program, you might not have the same type of experience. And so having just cold emailing professors, yeah, sure. I mean, I've sometimes it can happen, but to be honest, there's way, way, way more benefits of being in the research program versus just cold emailing a professor and then, saying, hey, can I help out in your lab, right? And there's really no commitment on the professor's there's really no commitment if you do that, right? Whereas if you're a part of a program, you're going to have a poster presentation at the end, you're going to have this structured support, right? And they want you to succeed, right? They want you to succeed. They want you to go to grad school, med school, transfer, whatever, because that's their job, is to help you, right? So you kind of have, a team of folks that are like they're, kind of helping you and promoting you and they want you to do well. Versus if you do just you know, like cold email someone, it might not be as rewarding and you might not get the same as if you would have, done a research program.
And at the other end of it too is these programs have funding so that there's like protected time to work with you, to have materials for you, because all those things cost money. And nobody's gonna put somebody with no experience on $1 million grant. Um, so if some of these programs have funding to have your own little smaller project so you could test out. But yeah, I mean, like I've had people to say, "Oh yeah, I went to this research and all I was doing was washing dishes." It's like, well,
Yes.
they're not going to let you work on their $1 million research program and screw up their data. But these programs actually have embedded funding to set up a smaller program for you, a smaller research that doesn't impact their, $1 million research that they're accountable for.
Absolutely. In addition, if you are a part of a, longstanding summer research program, that people know about these programs, right? So let's say, for example, you apply to grad school, right? And the faculty is like, oh, I've had, I've been involved in this, program in the past, or I've had interns from this program. Or let's say you tell your professor, oh yeah, I was in this program. They might have been in that program, right? Or a very similar program. So really leveraging that affiliation, I think, is very crucial versus just the cold email. I mean, yeah, sometimes it does work, but I think it's more advantageous to be in a structured program and get paid for it, right?
Yeah, because people don't want to do free labor.
Nobody should do. No, none of you should be doing free labor. So who funds programs? So there's various funding sources, but here are kind of the main organizations. So the National Science Foundation, the U.S. Department of Energy, National Institutes of Health, NASA, Amgen Scholars, Department of Agriculture. Now, last year, you may have read about this in the news. Last year was a terrible year. Last year was in the research world, in the scientific world, in the education world. Last year was a terrible year in this ROU world, because there were a number of programs that were cut, and very, very abruptly cut. The National Institutes of Health, that program was cut. Many of the National Science Foundation REU programs were cut. And it was very sad, because there were a number of students that were accepted into the programs and planned to do the programs, only to find out, oh, it's been canceled, right? However, this year, there, has been, I guess the dust has settled, if that's one way to look at it. And so programs that are slated for funding for next year are already recruiting. Some of the programs will say that they'll find out, let's say in January, but those programs that know that they are getting funding, they are actively recruiting, which is a good thing, because that means that you can plan to apply to those programs and participate in those programs. But, last year it was awful. I mean, not since COVID. And I think, to be honest, I think this was actually worse than COVID. COVID was one thing, because some of those programs switched to remote, and, some of those programs, I think that because of COVID and what was going on, but I think last year was just worse, because I just don't, necessarily agree with the way it was handled, but we're moving forward. However, let's say that you applied to one of those programs last year, right? Let's say you applied to one of those programs last year and you were accepted into one of those programs. I would leverage that. I would mention that, because you were accepted into the program, but through no fault of your own, were you not able to participate. So let's say you did a program last year, or let's say you were accepted into a program last year, you couldn't do it because of the funding. I would mention that. Mention that in your applications, mention that, because that's going to show whoever's looking at your application, oh, this person, participated in, or this person was, slated to participate, and they'll understand. So I think that if you did one, were accepted into one last year, that you should include that on your applications. Okay, so finding your research opportunities. So you can do a number of things. You can do a Google search, right? If you want to, sure, that works. I also used AI, right? And AI, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. Like AI is going to be great. I can just, it's going to spit out a list. Well, it didn't. It gave me some for high school students. It gave me, it was kind of vague. And I'm like, oh, this is just like doing a Google search, right? Which, you can always do. But here's some websites that you can, look at. One, REU Finder, of course. Now, I'll tell you that we have had a lot. I mean, we have people sending every single day opportunities. So I would say, give us a couple weeks. The deadlines aren't even due until, like, the first deadline that I know of is not even due till December. So we're going to be doing some massive, massive updates in the next week or two, because like I said, like, a lot of people have been, sending us stuff. But REU Finder. So the benefit to our site is we have it separated by freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, community college students, international students, and undocumented students, right? So you can go to, that page and look at the various page and see. Now, freshmen, sophomores, any student that's at a community college, you're considered a freshman or a sophomore, right? So I would look at the freshman and sophomore pages and maybe the community college page, because there are some programs that either are for exclusively for community college students, or they strongly encourage community college students. In addition, if you ever see they're looking for students from schools with limited research opportunities, that typically means community college, because let's say someone who's at, like, UC San Diego, right? UC San Diego, they have a ton of research, but as a community college student, it's less prevalent. So that would be you. So I would apply to those. The AAMC is a good one. For the pre-med folks, you definitely want to check that one out. Pathways to Science is a good one. I like Pathways to Science because if you have siblings, if you have cousins, younger folks, they also have high school programs as well. And then the NSF and the NSF ETAP. So the National Science Foundation, the first one, the nsf.gov, that tells you whether or not a program has an REU. It's not the most exciting one, but at least you will be able to see. The ETAP, I've seen errors in the ETAP, so I'm a little bit nervous about that one sometimes, because sometimes I see that it's errors. I think they automatically just update it or something, and sometimes it's wrong. So if you look at the ETAP, go to the actual site. Don't rely on that, because I've seen a number of times where it's not fully accurate. Like maybe the system does something, I don't know, but you want to go to that actual site to see if the program is active, because I've seen instances where the deadline's closed, and then according to ETAP, it's like, oh yeah, it's due in March, right? So you want to make sure that you go to the actual site. Okay, so here are some terms that you'll encounter. Rolling admissions. Rolling admissions means that as they go,
Early bird gets the worm.
early bird gets the worm. So when I ran an REU program at UC Berkeley, I was like, I think our deadline was like January 31st, but I would start calling people. Hey, what are you interested in? Who do you want to work with, right? And so rolling admissions, that means that they will start accepting people until all the slots are full. So those are the ones you want to put on your list for first. Rising sophomores. Does anyone know what rising sophomores means? Rising sophomores means that when you participate in the program, you'll be a sophomore that next summer. So you're a freshman right now, you're a rising sophomore. Similarly, if you're a sophomore right now, that summer that you participate, you're a rising junior, right? That's what that means. It's weird. I don't know why they use that term, but that's the term they use. Another term is non-graduating seniors. So what that means is some of these programs have a very, very strict policy that you have to be in school in the fall after you do the program. So let's say, for example, you are a transfer student. A lot of transfer students, it's very common for transfer students to graduate in January as opposed to May or June, right? Let's say you take an extra semester when you transfer. Or let's say you're, your particular, graduation cycle is different. That means that you are a senior with, that means you're a senior with like unit standing, but you will be returning in fall. And the cool thing about a lot of these programs is I've seen many, many students continue their research even after the program, sometimes remotely, or sometimes, you'll present at a conference, or, if it's nearby, you'll, continue. So that's what those terms mean. So if you're a freshman right now, you'll be a rising sophomore. If you're a sophomore, you'll be a rising junior, right? And then, of course, non-graduating seniors. PI, we see that a lot. It's not a private investigator. It's a principal investigator. Basically, that's the lead faculty member, right? Well, and my PI, when people say my PI, it's basically their lead investigator. The PI is like the person in charge of the lab. Sometimes there's co-PIs, right? Sometimes there's more than one. And then again, students from institutions with limited research opportunities. So that could mean a school that, let's say you're going to a community college and there are not a lot of research opportunities, or maybe you're going to a smaller liberal arts college. One of my favorite students I ever had went to a very, very tiny school in Indiana, and there were few and limited research opportunities. So you also, in your applications, I think it would be helpful to provide context, right? Now, let's say you go to a school that does not have limited research opportunities. If that's the case, let's say, for example, you want to study, I don't know, aerospace engineering, right? And your university doesn't have an aerospace engineering program, then in that case, I would explain that, right? Because they might see the name of your school and say, oh, that school has plenty of opportunities. But you really have to persuade them, like, here's why I would be beneficial if they say someone from limited research opportunities. So that's, those are just some tips. Okay, so what's the application process look like? Essays. You have to write essays. You're going to need to have a resume or a CV. CV is just basically a fancy way of saying a research resume. Now, a resume, we all know, we've all heard, you go to career fairs and, 1 page, short and sweet, right? However, if they do not limit you to 1 page, then I would say it's completely okay to make it more than 1 page. By the time that you apply to grad school or med school, your resume should be more than 1 page, right? If you're applying to med school and you're applying to grad school and your resume is 1 page, then that's not good, right? So if they say 1 page, fine, 1 page. But if they say you can do more than 1 page, that's even better. So, that's something to consider. Letters of recommendation, typically they will ask for letters of recommendation, usually 1 to 2, and then transcripts. Now, many times they will not ask for officials. Unofficials are usually fine. I think COVID, like that, went out the window, right? Plus, it's costly, it's expensive, stuff gets lost in the mail. So these days, many, many programs do not require official transcripts. However, make sure that you really give your actual transcripts, because they could ask for officials, right? So if you do give an official, that's totally fine, but make sure that that you are, including everything, right? Maybe there was a semester that you didn't have a good semester. It happens, right? Don't not include that, because they could ask for your official. So you want to make sure, that's just an integrity thing. Okay, letters of recommendation. Grades alone will not give you strong letters of recommendation. So let's say you are doing very well in classes. Sometimes students think, oh, well, I'm getting an A+ in this class. I'm doing very well. I don't need to go to office hours, right? Not true. You should go to office hours. You should go to office hours. If you're doing well in the class, great. If you're not doing well in the class, that's fine too. I mean, you should go to office hours, to discuss your how you're doing in the class. In addition, If you are thinking about applying to research programs, talk to your professors. Talk to your professors and, talk to them about that you're applying, right? Get their insight. Maybe they have a colleague at another university. Maybe they have a colleague if you're at a community college. Maybe they themselves, they went to college somewhere, right? Maybe they're like, oh, my colleague at this program, or oh, my mentor at this program, you should connect with them. They can be a great source as well. Jobs in
Miss Reardon,
uh-huh. Yeah.
you've read a lot of letters of recommendation. Can you just give like an example of a good versus a bad letter of recommendation?
Yes.
And why? And most of them are from faculty. Like most of the programs want faculty letters, not from your. They will tell you.
So a bad letter of recommendation reads like this, I don't know. Sophia is in my chemistry class and has asked me to write a letter of recommendation. With the right mentorship, Sophia could be successful. That's a bad letter of recommendation.
Or
That's
my
a
favorite one is, Sophia was in my class of 560 students, and she was in the 97th percentile.
yeah.
That's probably my favorite bad letter of recommendation.
Or Sophia is currently earning an A, but that's non-committal. A good
Yeah.
letter, it's a great pleasure to recommend, Sophia for your summer research program. Sophia is in my general chemistry course that I am teaching. Sophia is a, pre-med, pre-med student who hopes to major in biology and attend medical school. Sophia is
Incredible human being that goes above
actively
and
engaged.
beyond.
She always sits in the front of the class. She always comes to office hours. Initially, she explained that she hadn't taken AP chemistry. However, she caught on. She always goes to the tutoring center. She's even, helped her classmates. What's remarkable about Sophia is that in addition to attending school, she also works part-time at the library. Okay, now how does your professor know all this stuff? You have to give them talking points, right? Give them talking points. They're not going to know this. They're not going to know that you work at the library. They're not going to know that you didn't take AP chemistry, right? So you got to give them talking points. You give them these talking points. Basically, the more that you give them, the more that they will include. You're making it easier for them, right? So you don't want them just to regurgitate what's on your transcripts. You want them to talk about you as a person. And the best way to do that is to give them those talking points, right? I've even had, some of my colleagues, I don't do this, but some of my colleagues say, can you just tell me what you want me to say, right? I mean, so I mean, that says that they really like, okay. So, but again, you want to make sure that it's memorable. But a bad letter of recommendation is not going to say this person is terrible. It's not going to say that. It's going to say like nothing, right? That's a bad letter of recommendation. So you want to get good letters of recommendation. In addition, maybe you have one letter from a faculty. Maybe you have one letter from a job or an internship that you did. And, you might ask, because essentially these research programs are jobs, right? You will have a supervisor, you will have, so you want to demonstrate work history, which is also why you should include jobs that you've had in the past. Even if they don't have to do with your major, it would be advantageous for you to include those things as well. All right. Who should write your letters of recommendation? STEM faculty, if it's a STEM program, counselors, MESA directors, STEM center directors, supervisors, and managers. Those are the folks that should write your letters of recommendation, not friends and family, not classmates. Even though I'm sure your, brother could write a great letter, or your mom and your classmates, No, they should not write letters of recommendation. I know they know you well. However, here's a thing to think about. Your classmates. What you might ask, what are some things that, I should highlight? What are some things that you've studied with me, you've taken classes with me, you've known me for a long time. What are some things you think I should, they can give you that, feedback, right? And that's great. And you can use that feedback when you give those talking points to your professors or whomever's writing the letter, but they shouldn't be writing the letter. It's just not, it's not going to be credible. However, if there are things that they can nominate you for, right? So sometimes there was a prize that these two friends, one of them, nominated her friend for this scholarship. It was beautiful. They were really good friends. And she wrote a very, endearing nomination letter. In that instance, it's fine, but they shouldn't write letters of recommendation. They're just not credible. Okay, what to include on your resume or CV? So you want to include your education. So where are you going to school? What are you majoring in? When do you graduate? If you're a community college student, you want to include when you plan to transfer. Even if you don't know where, that's completely fine. You would put, when you plan to transfer. The courses you've taken. So when we say courses you've taken, not like, don't just say like Chem 1A, right? No, you can say general chemistry, or you can say, physics, or calculus with geometry, right? So you want to just list the topics that are applicable to that internship. Your work experience, even if it has nothing to do with your major, work experience is work experience. I've had so many students over the years that have worked at McDonald's, and I'm like, that's a very hard job. And that's a great, training, because McDonald's, very high stress environment. You have to work with people, and they have to do a ton of safety training, right? And guess what? If you're in a lab, same thing, right? So all of these things, so think of it this way, all of the things the skills that you've acquired through your jobs, you want to be able to show that those are transferable in your internships. Projects, right? Maybe projects that you've worked on, leadership, right? That could be leadership in terms of, I'm president of a club. Or it could be leadership in terms of things that you have organized and led in school or outside of school. Volunteer experience as well, which might also give a glimpse of things that you're passionate about, right? Let's say, for example, you're pre-med and you volunteer at a hospital, right? That's, a good thing to highlight. It might include interests and hobbies. Now, interests and hobbies, I am a fan of that, because after a while, resumes start to kind of look the same, time and time again. But if you have interests and hobbies, something might resonate, right? Something might resonate with whomever's reading it, right? Maybe maybe you run marathons, maybe you play guitar, maybe you're, you know, solve Rubik's Cube in your spare time, right? Maybe whatever you do, chances are that's going to resonate with someone and they're going to remember that, right? So I would include interests and hobbies. Doesn't have to do with your major. It could be just something, and it also shows that you're well-rounded as well.
Please don't put that you like to read research articles and scientific journals for fun. Like, there's this big thing on most people's head. It's called a BS meter, and they'll pick that up right away. Like, unless you're like the absolute outlier. And I think, like, if you are that outside, talk about something that's fun. Like, I don't know, I like going on walks on the beach, or I don't know, like, but if you're like, you should, everybody has something fun they like to do. So
Absolutely. And the thing that I really encourage you to think about is, think about something you enjoy doing and think about something you're good at, and talk to people about that. And I guarantee, if you're on the shyer side, if you start talking about things that you enjoy doing and you like doing, and you're a shy person by nature, that shyness is going to go away because you feel comfortable, right? So be comfortable talking about those things, those interests and hobbies. It's a great icebreaker. And, who knows, it may, resonate with someone, right? Maybe you did Model UN in high school, right? That tells me, oh, this person likes public speaking. This person would probably be a great presenter. Or maybe you play chess for fun, or maybe you do ballet folklorico and you're, really good at it, right? So whatever you're interested in, include that on as well. Okay. If you have uncertainties, ask before you apply, read the FAQs. Um, this is a red flag. If there's a page of FAQs on the website and you start emailing them and ask questions about it, that tells the person that's running the program that you didn't take the time to read the FAQs, right? So you want to make sure you do. In addition, make sure that your schedule permits full participation in the program. So I'll never forget the time when I had a student, it was a 8-week program. No, it was a 10-week program. It was a 10-week program. And the student was like, hey, my family and I are going on a cruise, a 2-week cruise, right? And I'm like, no, like you're going to miss 2 weeks of the program. Like that's a long, long time to be out, right? Can't do it. And then they were like, well, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. And then I got tickets to a concert. So I'm going to be gone like this 4 days. It's like, that's like 3 weeks, right? So you can't do that, right? You're not available. So make sure that you, can participate. Don't take classes. Please don't take classes. You want your full attention to be on the program. In addition, sometimes students think, well, it's an online class. I guarantee you there's going to be a time where something conflicts, right? So don't take classes. Either take classes or do these research programs, but don't do both.
What if
Um,
you
uh-huh.
so you manage a lot of summer programs? What if you wait until after you get in and you tell them that on the first day? Say, I'm going to be 2 weeks on a cruise. I got a wedding coming up, so I'm going to be gone for a week,
They're gonna say
and I
bye.
also want a basket weave for a couple of days. So what would you
Mhm.
tell them?
They're gonna say bye. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've never asked a student to leave, but I have colleagues that and it's awful. You know what? When you have to ask someone to leave a program, like I said, I have never had that, knock on wood, but I have had colleagues, and it's awkward for the person that's, doing it. It's awkward for the other students. Like just don't, also in addition, if there's a thing where you have to stay on campus, and you don't want to, that's a thing sometimes like, well, why do I have to stay on campus? Because they want you to be immersed in the program, right? And so if that's a criteria, sometimes it's okay. Sometimes they're like, okay, it's optional. But if it is a requirement, like you have to respect that and you have to do it. Um, so be sure that you're, fully engaged, fully invested, and able to do it. Meet all the deadlines. Don't ask for the extensions.
And it's not about not being fair. They're paying you, so it's kind of like a
Yeah,
job.
yeah, it's a
S-
job. Like,
So
yeah, exactly.
so it's not like they're trying to be mean, but that's the expectation they have from you.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So yeah, it is a job, and so you want to be it is a job, and so you want to be like, you want to make a good impression, especially at this stage in your career. You want to make a good impression. In addition, you also want to make it so the next person from your school, right? You want them to say, "Oh, that student from San Antonio College, wow. Like, what an amazing student. Like, wow, where can we get more students? Like, we really like that student, right?" So you also want to do that as well. And sometimes they'll ask you. Sometimes they'll ask you to help recruit. Sometimes they'll even pay you to be an ambassador. Apply to more than one program. Unfortunately, there aren't always, they can only accept so many students. So apply to more than one program. 5 is a really good number, right? If you apply to 5 programs, that's a good number. If you apply to more, that's even better, but that's a good number to apply to. Don't just apply to one because, maybe you'll get in, but maybe not, right? And
Miss
then you,
Reardon, this
uh-huh,
is another good question.
uh-huh.
Somebody says if a program starts at a date where you're still in school or you need to leave early because of school, what should you do? And that's a great question.
That's not a problem at all. In fact, we've had that. So students that are on the semester system versus quarter system. So typically the quarter system students might, semester system you might get out in May, quarter system you might get out in early June. So that's reasonable, right? That's totally reasonable in that instance. Or maybe maybe you have to go. That's completely reasonable. They'll work with you on that. But if it's like, oh, I'm going to a cruise, or oh, I'm going on to Hawaii or whatever, then that's not really,
And also, like, if you ever have like this issue with academics, just include like your class schedule or something that like solidifies what you're asking for. Because I would say 9 out of 10 times people will take your word, or they know about like certain schools being, but having that one person that, that 10% or whatever that would check it, that you just make it easier for them, but also it solidifies like, hey, you're a serious person. This is actually somebody asked this question: how long are the summer internship programs? Can
usually
you
they're 8 to 10 weeks. So 8 to 10 weeks. Now, sometimes they have, I've seen this in winter. Sometimes they have 2 week programs like a micro internship or a micro research experience. Those would happen in the winter time. I've seen those as well, but like a full like REU program is usually 8 to 10 weeks. Um, use your school email. I would say use your school email and check your school email regularly. In addition, you might want to have an email signature at the end of your email, just to look more professional. And make sure you check your email regularly. If you include your phone number, answer your phone, right? I'm that terrible person that never answers my phone. But you want to answer your phone because they might call you to ask you something, right? They might call you and say, "Hey, we noticed that you've, indicated you're interested in this professor, but there's another professor that saw your application and is interested, or they might even call you to ask you, like clarify something. So make sure you answer your phone. It's kind of like it's applying for, jobs essentially, right? So when you're on the hunt for a job, you also are going to answer your phone. So think of it that way.
please, please, please also put a professional voicemail on
Yeah.
your voicemail?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be cool to your friends and everything, and you want to have, cuss words or anything like that, or songs or anything like that. That's great. If you're really the kind of person that need to do that, then get like a Google Voice number or something. That's a professional one, because actually, like, in my day work, I actually like was gonna call someone to offer him a job, and as soon as I heard that voicemail that had, and this is somebody that I saw that had very, very offensive things on their voicemail, and I basically hung up and I told the committee that this person should not work in our facility because of that. So, and we ended up like not offering that position. This is also happens in labs and other things. So just make sure that you don't do that. That's like the worst thing that could happen to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you want to make a good impression. I mean, I've had like, like that, hello, and then, and then they pause, hello, hello. I mean, like, who has time for that, right? Like, just I know it's funny, right? Like it's good you have a sense of humor, but like people don't really have time for that. So make sure that you have a voicemail set up, right? That's another thing too. Like I said, I rarely answer my phone. I'm getting better because I'm finding like, oh, I actually need to start answering my phone, but make sure you have your voicemail box set up as well. Because they might want to, leave you a message.
Yeah.
Verify that your application has been received, short and sweet. Don't nag them and bother them and pester them. That's a good way of not getting in, right? Like if you nag and bother and pester, uh, believe me, those students, I'm like, that person's not getting in. I'm not dealing with that for 10 weeks, right? So you want to be someone that they want in their program, right?
We had a,
Okay,
oh,
here's one.
sorry. We
Uh-huh.
had a follow-up question from the chat. They were asking, should a student get a letter of rec from the postdoc or a grad student that works in the lab?
Oh, A postdoc would be wonderful. You know, postdocs are some of the most phenomenal mentors that I have ever seen. So get a if you get a letter from a postdoc, I think that would be preferable. A grad student, what if we were able to work at the postdoc starting the school year? What are thoughts about asking to work in the summer versus putting it on pause? Yeah, if you can work with a postdoc, I think that would be great. And if you get the letter from them, I think that would be helpful as well. So to AI or not to AI. So this is a very, very common. We use AI all the time. I use AI every single day, right? However, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I could just use AI, right? I could just use AI to create my essays, can use AI to create my resume, can use AI, it's going to help me. What do you think? Yes or no? What do you think? Put the thumbs up or the thumbs down. What do you think? AI or no AI? What do you think? Yes or no? Okay. Well, here's my take on it. No. Here's why. Even though I'm sure AI can write something, one, the ability to write and reflect on why you are applying to this program. If you use AI, it is such a missed opportunity, right? This is going to force you, when you write these essays, this is going to force you to look at the program, understand the program, know what you're applying to, know what you're getting into. If you read about this program and you're like, oh my gosh, now I really want to get into this program. This is really exciting. I want to do this, right? Or, oh, that doesn't sound fun. I don't want to do that, right? Then you might say, it's not for me. I'm going to try something else, right? It allows you the ability to reflect on why you're applying. It allows you the ability to articulate your interests. Now, here's the thing. If you rely on AI too much, guess what's going to happen? You can't have AI when you're, in the program and someone asks you a question. Why are you interested in this? What are you going to say? Hold on, let me check my phone, right? No, you need to be comfortable articulating your interests, developing your elevator pitch. Those of you that are pre-med, those of you that are, wanting to transfer, those of you that, in this stage, you should have your elevator pitch down pat. You should be able, I'm telling you, you could be at, getting Starbucks, right? You can be getting Starbucks or coffee or boba, whatever. And you might have someone, you know, talking to you casually. Maybe you see someone, and they're working at a hospital and, you started a conversation with them or something and you're like, actually, I'm, interested in pre-med, right? Having that elevator pitch, being able to articulate your interests, what you're interested in, what you're doing. If you rely on AI, you're not going to be able to do that. It really, really allows you. In addition, it's also in your own voice. I can always tell when something's AI and not AI, and the things that stand out are most genuine. And so again, like I said, I'm not anti-AI because I use AI all the time, but in this instance, I would say don't use AI.
The
Use
other
it.
thing is that I would just
Uh-huh.
tell you is that a lot of institutions are paying licensing fee for AI. What are those AI catchers? Not
Oh
AI.
yeah, yeah.
And so it's literally on their browser, and so they could say, this just looks really weird, and they will check it, and if it comes out to like 100% or whatever, like that's like a really good shot of like people just say, if we wanted AI to be in our summer program, then we would have just like, you know,
And
so
maybe it's maybe you're going in an AI lab. That's amazing. But you don't need to use AI to use the AI in the lab, not in your application. In fact, in your transfer applications, technically it is plagiarism if you use, AI to write your, prompts and things like that. But it's not for that reason. It's mostly because I think it would be better if you are able to reflect. Why are you interested in this program? And for you to be able to articulate your interests and start feeling comfortable talking about what you're interested in, that's going to really make you stand out. Okay, so here's some examples. So some examples of programs that might be of interest. So this is the Summer Health Professions Education Program. This program has been around for a long time. They are going to start recruiting on November 1st. That's when the applications open. The deadline is the February 5th. These are sites all throughout the US. Some of them, this is what we would call summer enrichment program. So this is an example. They take freshmen, sophomores, and now juniors. I think at 3 of their sites, they actually take juniors now. The minimum GPA is a 2.5, and it opens November 1st. So take a look at this program. I'm not sure. I think they do a rolling admissions. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like they do rolling admissions. It'll say on there. But this is a good one, you know, especially if you are like, I don't know, am I pre-med? I don't know, right? This would be good because maybe you find like, actually, I'm not pre-med, right? So it'd be good to check it out because this would be a good one to get a glimpse of, you know, med school. American Physiological Society, I included this one because this is a very interesting one because not only do they allow you to participate in a research program, but they also pay for you to attend their physiology summit, and they get the 1-year membership to APS, but you get to present your research at the summit, which is pretty cool, right? They're looking for students that have had less than 9 months of prior research experience. So that's 0 to 9 months, right? So maybe you have no experience. That's totally fine. Their deadline is February 2nd. I don't believe there are any citizenship restrictions for this one. So definitely check it out, see if it's of interest. But this one is, you know, funded and is happening next year. Carnegie Mellon. I saw that we have some CS folks on here. So if you're interested in computer science, software engineering, this one is for 1st and 2nd year undergraduates. You don't have to have research experience. You don't have to have advanced coursework in computer science. So if you are a 1st or 2nd year computer science major or computer engineering major, this would be a good one to apply to. Carnegie Mellon. I mean, Carnegie Mellon is like one of the top CS programs in the world. In addition, note that the deadline is February 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So that's important, right? So as you apply to these, if they have a timestamp, make sure. Because if you're like, oh yeah, I'm plenty of time, you know, let's say you're in LA, and Carnegie Mellon is in Pittsburgh, so they're on East Coast time, so it's, you know, 3 hours later. So make sure, right? That's an important thing. But don't wait till the last minute, right? I always tell myself, like, you know, if the deadline, like what I would say, if the deadline's February 2nd, just tell yourself it's June 30th, right? In addition, tell your recommenders, right? Tell your recommenders. You never know. Faculty are busy, right? Give them plenty of time to write your letter and maybe even tell them an earlier deadline if you can, right? Because there's nothing worse than having to chase someone around for, you know, an application. It's not a fun experience. Cold Spring Harbor, here's another one. This one I thought would be good because some of the research topics, molecular bio and cancer, genetics, neuroscience, and we have some neuroscience folks on here, plant bio and quantitative biology. So this would be a good one. This deadline is a little bit sooner than some of the other ones. This one is January 15th. So I would say if you're going to apply to this one, you know, start getting your application ready sooner rather than later because, you know, December will happen and, you know, folks aren't usually, you know, faculty aren't usually responsive in, you know, winter break. Some are, but it depends. But January 15th, that's going to be here before you know it. That one is Pacific Standard Time. So that one, you know, is much sooner than some of the other ones. So this is a good one. I would definitely encourage you to apply. National Institutes of Health. Now, this one is a very, very good one. I know in the past, NIH has done talks for PreMedCC. It's a fantastic program. Last year, the defunding had absolutely nothing to do with the work of NIH. NIH is a very fantastic organization that does a lot of very, very important research. My understanding is that in mid-October to early November, they will have the applications available. I think they're just waiting on the funding. And so as you may or may not know, the government is currently shut down, which also, causes some delays, which is not ideal. But I do want this to be on your radar because this would be a really good one to apply to. Johns Hopkins, another one. Johns Hopkins is a good one as well. Some of you might want to go to Johns Hopkins for med school, right? Which would be fantastic. The Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, although it's not listed on here, I've had a number of students do that program when they're in community college and get the research bug and continue with research and have gone all the way to the PhD. So, Johns Hopkins is somewhere that you might consider for grad school, consider for research, but they also have a really well-established program. All right. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I love posting on LinkedIn, REU Finder, Instagram. Check out REU Finder. Like I said, we'll be posting a lot of different, research opportunities. And we'll be posting, some things on. Yesterday we posted. There's a company called Jane Street, and they actually have, if you're interested in finance, software engineering, they actually have a really cool program called In Focus, where they will fly you out to New York in January, all expenses paid, to learn about their program. And they are looking for students that have had limited opportunities and obstacles in achieving opportunities in STEM. So that's the kind of thing so not only do we post just about REUs, but we also post scholarships and these kind of enrichment experiences, travel experiences. Sometimes we post about travel scholarships and scholarships in general. So follow us on Instagram and connect with me on LinkedIn.
We
And
post a lot of stuff on our socials as well because
yes.
we literally get 5 to 10 messages a week about programs that want to promote, and we just can't send out emails to every single person. So we post a lot of stuff on social media and make sure, and I know that that's like a really bad thing to tell people, but it's impossible for us to email everything. And so we post a lot of things as well, and I know Miss Reardon does. We have a whole team on social media that post and repost stuff that I personally don't have access to our social media stuff, but um, our team posts all the time, and a lot of programs just reach out to us, and we just repost stuff. And so I would say highly recommend. And I know you post a lot on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, if you're not following at PreMedCC, you are absolutely missing out because you guys get some really, really prestigious speakers. You have a ton of, a wealth of information. So, just click follow and you're gonna find it makes the search easier, right? They kind of do the work for you. So this is the fun part. We get to ask the Q&A. So there's a question. I'm a freshman. I've only taken prereqs. Am I able to still apply? Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. There are programs that want students. And guess what? Right now you're a freshman, but you're taking classes now. You're taking classes in spring. And by the time summer comes around, you're going to be a rising sophomore. So yes, definitely apply. There are programs that want freshmen. We have a whole page dedicated to freshmen that we are updating. So, yes, 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 definitely apply. How much research experience do I need to apply? Is it enough to have taken 1 or 2 classes in the subject? Absolutely. Think of it this way. There are programs, for example, the NIH, they have a high school program, right? So yes, they don't expect you to be experts. They just want students who have some foundational understanding and an interest. The interest, the passion, wanting to get exposure, yes, you don't have to have a lot of experience. And some of those programs that I shared, you don't have to have experience. They just want somebody who's willing to learn, who's interested, who's, responsible, who's, easy to work with, adaptable. So definitely apply.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they wanted people for experience, they wouldn't have the summer program. They would go recruit
Exactly.
postdocs or other people.
Yes.
So that's the entire point of these programs.
Something to also consider is that, let's say, for example, you are so when, sometimes when you look on your classes, right? So like typically, they say freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. They mean like the year in school. They don't mean like how many units you have, right? Especially like, let's say you have a lot of AP classes, right? Let's say you have a lot of AP classes and you're considered a junior standing. If they say juniors and seniors, if you are a second year student, they would want somebody who's actually a junior or senior, right? So just thinking about like basically the cycle of the 4-year cycle. Now, let's say, for example, you're a community college student, you've taken lower division coursework, right? You've taken the lower division coursework, so you'd be considered a first or second year. Then, of course, when you transfer, let's say you're going to be transferring in next fall, then you will be a rising junior, right? Another question, what REU programs are recruiting and not affected by the cut of funding? Well, I think
If you could
uh,
predict the future, that's a skill that nobody has. So
well, I think, one of the things is that we know which programs, are going to be offered, right? So some of the programs and that's partially the reason why, like, we are a little bit behind on updating because there was a lot of uncertainty, right? So like that doesn't mean you're behind by any means because some of these programs haven't even started, the applications are open now, right? But those that are on the National Science Foundation, I think the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Health, the Department of Energy, the USDA, those ones really, really got impacted the most, right? But some of the scholars, research programs like the ANGEM Scholars Program, NASA did get actually some substantial funding, but some of these other programs that were not impacted by the funding cuts. So I think for this year, we do have a much, much better sense of who's going to get funded versus last year. Last year was just an anomaly and it was terrible.
I
Another
think
yeah,
question.
and the thing is that there's
Uh-huh.
no way to game it, and I would
Yeah.
say you rather apply and maybe get than to not apply and then have the funding go through. So it's kind of like one of those risks that you can't really predict the future, but there's a lot. That's one thing you can't. There's a lot of things in life you could control applying or not applying to this program, but funding you can't really control that. And so
Yeah.
I would say you know, I would say you rather apply and have it program, you know, than to not apply and then have the program go forth. So
What if you get accepted to more than one program and can only do one? How do you go about refusing the program that you can't join? So if you get accepted to more than one program, you definitely have to make a decision. You want to let them know because you want to keep that door open. You don't want to burn any bridges. In addition, sometimes what'll happen is you find out that you got into one, but then maybe the one that you really want, you haven't, found out yet. So what you do is you simply email them and say, I I applied to your program. I'm really, really interested. I also applied to another program and I got accepted. However, I was wondering, when decisions will be posted and so what they'll do is usually they'll say, oh, well, let me take a look at your application. Maybe we can, look at it before. And then what you can do is you can ask the program that accepted you, maybe for a week or two to decide, right? That's the best way to do it. What you don't want to do is you don't want to say yes to both and then say, oh, just kidding, right? Because that burns bridges. Same thing with internships. That happens a lot. And that's a bad thing. So you definitely don't want to do that. But it is a real dilemma, but the way that you handle it, it can be managed. And that's a good problem to have. It means you're very talented and a lot of people see that. And
They know that you're applying to more than one program,
exactly.
and they're not like going to be heartbroken. They're just going to go to the next person that they have on the list. But that's a good problem to have.
Right, exactly. How many research programs do you recommend to apply to? At least five. Five minimum would be my more is better, but at least five.
And practice makes perfect. So if you
Yeah,
the first one that you apply to versus the last one that you apply to, you see that progression.
exactly. Are there any specific skills I should develop to improve my chances of being accepted into a research position? Yes. The first skill, confidence. Confidence. Confidence and the ability to professionalism, confidence, right? Those are things. Going to office hours, right? Going to office hours. Get those letters of recommendation by going to office hours. Going, if your campus has a career center, go to the career center, ask for help with your resume, right? They have people, that's their job. Their job is to help you, get into, helping with the resume, right? When you thrive in things, you're making their school look good, right? So those are the skills. Those are what we call the soft skills, right? And those soft skills are very, very crucial. They're equally as important as the, technical skills.
Practice on showing up on time,
Yes.
like having 2 or 3 alarms and showing up early.
Oh, I have like 10 alarms.
Now there's a saying, you show up early, you're on time. If you're late, you're gone, and if you're on time, you're late. So it's like you always show up early.
Yeah, anyone who's ever done sports, you're always early. I can always tell if somebody did sports because they're always early, which is not a bad thing. Is
Because
AI
you
bad?
run.
Is AI bad for grammar? For example, if you wrote it but just prompt. Yeah, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. So that's a good question. So you can use AI for grammar,
Or
but that's just
Grammarly.
or Grammarly, but that's just putting the finishing touches on it, right? That's not like relying on AI to whatever, right? That's completely fine. If you want to use the AI for grammar or to help it sound a bit more professional or, that's totally fine. But just saying, hey AI, give me all this stuff, that's not good, right? But absolutely. I'm loving analogies, right? Like, here's a good analogy. Like AI is like a cubic zirconia, right? Where you are like a diamond, right? And using AI for your grammar, that's just polishing the diamond, right? You are the diamond in the rough and you're using AI to just kind of polish that diamond. So yes, you can use AI, you can use Grammarly. That's not a problem.
I survive on Grammarly. I could not live without.
Let's see. Can you remind me of the summer research program you mentioned for community college underrepresented in STEM? Well, there's a number of them. The one that I talked about specifically was the NIH program. The NIH program, they have one specifically for students at community college. Also, Department of Energy has the CCI Institute. I believe that deadline is January 6th. And then if you go to the REU Finder site, we will be having on our page, we have a whole page dedicated to programs that have programs specifically for community college students. But in addition, I would look at the programs for freshmen and sophomores as well. What can I do to improve my chances in research after a bad academic history? So you're not alone in that question. There, your GPA tells a story, right? So I know that, sometimes, we look at our GPA and we think, oh my gosh, like, I did really poor that semester. But that's where context comes into play, right? So that's where context comes into play. So you basically, instead of like saying, oh, I'm embarrassed by this, own it. Say, you know what, I had, as you can see from my transcripts, I had a very rough semester. Here's what was going on. I just mentioned the program that the Jane Street program. Like, that's what they want. They want students who are like, hey, I've had obstacles, I've had barriers, right? So talking about those obstacles, talking about those barriers, and then of course putting a positive spin on it, right? Maybe you've had an upward trend in grades, and that's, what they would want to see. And then maybe talk about what you did differently, right? Maybe you're a first generation college student. Maybe you were working a lot. Maybe you didn't know that you had to drop a class and you got an incomplete or something like that, right? But showing and calling out the upward trend in grades is very, very important, and they're going to see that.
There, there's a question in chat that I thought was really important.
Uh-huh.
The person was asking, what would you recommend for finding research opportunities as someone who recently graduated but has little formal experience?
Oh, okay. So there's actually there are post-baccalaureate programs as well. And sometimes the programs will say for recent graduates. So on our page, if they take, so if they take seniors, or if they take graduating seniors, or if you are a post-bac, because you'd be considered a post-bac if you've already finished your degree. So depending on what you're interested in, I know that the Pathways to Science has a category specifically for students that have already graduated. So I definitely would check that out. And I know a lot of the medical schools have, programs for students. In addition, there are opportunities for students that haven't had research experience. So absolutely. So you're not alone in that. And I think there's something in the chat about the Stanford program. So there are other, programs as well. So I definitely would encourage you to apply. Let's see. I'm the club civic engagement on campus. I'm an officer and work very closely with our club advisor, a faculty member who's in English. Would a letter of recommendation from this person be acceptable? Yeah, actually. So for this one, if this faculty member knows you, they can speak to your leadership ability, your what you've done. I think that would be completely fine. Usually there's 2 letters, so maybe that one that can speak to, kind of your leadership and things that you've done in that capacity, and then maybe have like a STEM faculty member, right? But I think that would be a good one. I think that would be a very good one to include.
If they say that you need to have 2 from your science faculty or STEM faculty or classes that you have labs in, make sure you follow the instruction. That's why it is so pertinent for you to read that, because some of them will say we want letters from faculty that you've had labs with, and some of them would not. So make sure you read that, because everyone's different. And I know Miss Reardon is like very versed at this. She doesn't know every single program by heart.
But there's there is if it's a program that recruits first and second year students, they're going to be a little more forgiving, if you will,
Forgiving, yeah.
right? They're not going to like, no, it has to be, but if it's a program for like juniors, seniors, grad students, they're going to say no, you need, right? So so I think in this instance that would be perfectly fine. What do freshmen with 0 lab experience usually do when they get accepted in labs? So It really depends on the project, right? So typically you have a grad student that is supervising you. Sometimes it's a project that's a already existing project. Sometimes they'll have a project that you come up with a project. Sometimes, and I've seen this as well, which is pretty cool, sometimes they'll allow you to work on a pre-existing project, and if you want to work on a side project, you can do that as well. So it really depends. Sometimes you have to pick a faculty member that you want to work with, and sometimes you also have to like explain why you're interested in that one. Sometimes you have to rank them. So it's very important that you read the actual projects that are listed and don't just say, I'll work with anyone, because that doesn't really give you it doesn't give them anything, right? Like you have to, like, why do you want to work with, that particular project, right? The Stanford Surge program, for example, is a really good example of, where you should, like, they'll give you a list of all the different research projects that are happening, and then you'll have to say why you want to work on that one. I think you pick like 3 and you say, okay, this is why I want to work on this one or this one or that one. So you will have to do some some reading about these projects and what they work on. But yes, first year students absolutely can apply. Do I need certifications like NIH, HIPAA, or CTI for clinical or medical research programs? If it's an undergraduate program, not typically. Usually,
During the orientation for like
uh-huh.
HIPAA and stuff, they'll make you go through it. So, because all of those cost money, and so like the CTI, I think you've done that one, Marco. The CTI one is like pretty expensive, so they will all like that during orientation, and some programs will also like before you start, they'll have you do these modules, and they're done all online. So no, you don't need to do it. But when you do it, then do it and put it on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. How do you go about letters of recommendation? Let's say you have 2 mentors willing to give you letters, but you're applying to multiple research programs. Are most mentors willing to write multiple letters? Yes, absolutely. So what I usually encourage, and I had a student do this and it was so wonderful. What I usually encourage is, if you use Google, for example, maybe you have a folder, and in that folder you put the list of programs that you're applying to. You put the list, you put a description, you put the deadline, very important, and then their resume, and then some talking points. Now, to be honest, faculty are not going to read your essays, right? They're not going to read them. Sometimes they will, but more often than not, they're not going to read your essays. That's why talking points are very helpful. In addition, once somebody writes a letter of recommendation for you, it is so easy to write another one. Change the date, change the name, easy peasy, right? So, very important. In addition, if you get accepted into these programs, let them know, right? They took the time to write you the letter of recommendation. Let them know when you got in. Even if you didn't get in, say, hey, you know what? I really appreciate you encouraging me, and, thank you for that. And then when you do get accepted into the program, definitely let them know, because it can be off-putting when you help someone, support someone, and they never, kind of report back. I had a colleague one year who wrote like 12 letters of recommendation for someone. And he found out on LinkedIn what his student was doing. And he was like, oh my God, like, really? Like, they couldn't even let me know. And he was not happy about it, right? So just as a professional courtesy, like, let folks know.
Yeah, and also send them like an update after the summer saying, thank you for the wonderful, because you want them to, I mean, if it was so good that you got into a summer program, you want to ask him again down the road and just send him an update saying thank you for the wonderful letter that you wrote. I had a great experience at XYZ research program and without your letter, I could have not done, like, you literally like have to go that, because at the end of the day, other end, these are people and they like to be affirmed, and and so do it, because then you could always go back and ask him for more, and plus, like, that's just like, they're human beings. And
Exactly. The last question, are there specific areas that should be included in a resume for cold emailing a PI? Yeah, so when you have your resume, if you have like a research resume, sometimes people will put research interests. And so you put down what you're interested in, right? So your research interest, that would be good. And then of course the coursework that you've taken, not a copy of your transcripts, but like the classes you've taken, right? Don't, like I said, don't put like Chem 1A, like, general chemistry or, classes you've taken. In addition, if you've taken any classes online, Coursera classes, for example, even though those classes, you're not getting like, units for those classes show interest. Those classes show training, right? Anything that you've done like on the side, you would mention that as well. And I think that want to be professional, use your school email if possible. And then, of course, an e-signature would be good. The e-signature should have your full name, the school you're from, your email, contact info, things like that. That's helpful as well, because it's all about context, right? So if you're cold emailing someone, in addition, maybe include how you found them. Was it a Google search? Was it, that you have some connection to them, right? Is it that they're, at a school that you're going to be applying to? Is it, whatever the affiliation is, include that as well, just to give context. So then it'll give them, an idea of like, who is this person emailing me? And then likely you'll get a response back.
alrighty, well, thank you again for coming and making time for us. I'm sure we could keep you till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but we all have to go. Um, Thank you for going over it, and yes, we will post the PowerPoint on the section of the website for you to go look through, and the video will be posted on YouTube. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you. My pleasure.